Welcome back to Odd Time Radio Hour's thrilling conclusion to Sherlock Holmes and the Kensington case. When we last left off, Sherlock Holmes and Watson found their way onto the Jolly Roger, where James Moriarty revealed that he is in fact none other than Captain James Hook. But before any more questions could be answered, Peter Pan arrived.
Dark and sinister man, have at you!
The boy and Moriarty began a spectacular sword fight. Moriarty swinging his hook and sword wildly as the boy flew in circles around him. Sherlock stood evaluating the scene. I say, Holmes, what do you make of all this?
You know, Watson, I have calculated my way out of so many situations that it is as involuntary to me as breathing. My mind simply maps the trajectory of events until I can see clearly the whole of any given scenario. But the more I look at this, the more abstract and confusing it becomes.
Should we stop this, whatever it is?
Wretched boy.
I very much would like to think that it is some undue theatrics set to unbalance us. But Moriarty, or Hook as he would have us believe, is earnest in trying to kill that boy.
Too slow.
And the boy is taunting Hook, or Moriarty, with such relish as to suggest that it is no act.
Well, it does seem rather authentic, doesn't it?
So, do we beat up kids?
I haven't the foggiest.
I mean, I will beat a kid up, but I don't know. Hey, Captain,
What is it, Smee?
am I, supposed to beat up kids?
That is in your job description as Mr. Smee, yes.
So you want me to beat this kid up?
I actually could use a break.
What's the matter, Hook? Too old to fight?
Is that so, Pan? Well, maybe the old man has some tricks up his sleeves.
They don't seem to have any interest in us at all.
Excuse me, Moriarty?
I am a little preoccupied, Holmes.
Yeah, he can't talk and fight at the same time. He's too old, and with his old brain.
Is it really necessary to mock me so?
Necessary? No. Fun? Yes.
And if you two could hold this swordplay for a moment.
Whatever you say, Sherlock.
Good form, old man. What is it, Holmes?
Where is Jane Henley?
Yes, where is she?
Wendy, I'd totally forgotten you were there. Yes, your daughter is quite safe. I've stowed her in a most excellent corner of the universe.
What? Where?
Tut, tut, Wendy. You were not given to such dramatics before. Whatever became of the girl so defiantly walked off the plank all those years ago?
Peter flew right up to Wendy, hovering inches from her face.
Is that you, Wendy?
Not now, Peter.
Is it time for spring cleaning?
No, Peter, it's not time for spring cleaning.
You look sad, Wendy.
Hook has Jane.
Hook?
Yes, Peter?
You took Jane?
It was a means to an end.
What end?
Ah, yes. I'm so glad you asked. Gentlemen,
The cabin door sprung open and 8 pirates emerged from the captain's quarters. As the buccaneers took their positions aboard the ship, I began to realize I recognized them.
Moriarty, what have you done?
I have found a crew for my ship.
These are the Darling brothers.
Holmes was quite right. The pirates before us were in fact Wendy's brothers. Their flamboyant costumes could not hide their true selves.
Yes, Holmes, all of these men were formerly lost boys. Their wealth of experience in Neverland makes them especially qualified for positions aboard my ship.
What foul process did you use to convert them to your side, Moriarty?
Foul play? Me? No, Holmes. I assure you each of my men volunteered to join my crew.
Impossible. Michael, whatever are you doing in that costume?
I'm sorry, miss. They call me Bill Jukes. What know me, and I sail under the command of Captain Hook.
Bill Jukes? No, you are Michael Darling.
Michael Darling was a dream Bill once had, a dream of a boring life, a boring job, and a loveless cold flat where he had nothing but loneliness to fill his hours.
That's not true. Michael, you had friends and family who loved you. Jane adored her Uncle Michael.
Jane? Wait, what?
Tut, tut, Bill, nothing to concern yourself with. Just a dream of a dreary life under the smoke-stained skies of London. You are an adventurer, a gentleman of fortune. You are a pirate. There is nothing but wide open skies and your heart's desire to discover new Neverlands and plunder their riches.
Aye, aye, Captain.
That was devilishly close, Wendy. I had underestimated your power of persuasion, but easily remedied.
Hook turned his sword toward Wendy. Her response was to take her sword from her brother's side and lash out at Hook.
On guard, Hook.
Counterattack, how pleasant.
Hook and Wendy began sword fighting. Wendy's skills were formidable, but Hook was a master with a blade.
Really, Wendy, I should warn you, I've been doing this for centuries.
And I should warn you, Captain Hook, no one fights better than an angry mother.
Wendy began to press Hook backwards.
Men, to arms!
The brothers began to rally about with weapons drawn. Pistols, swords, and even cannons were coming into play.
We mustn't injure any of the darling brothers.
And what's keeping them from injuring us?
It might be time for a tactical retreat.
Lost boys never retreat.
Think of it more like a game of hide and seek.
Oh, we can do that. Tink, to the longboat. Aye, aye, Peter.
However this was possible escapes me at present, but Mrs. Bell scooped me up like a bag of feathers. Then Holmes, then Wendy. She deposited us in a longboat, and Peter grabbed hold of the bow and took off into the sky. I have to admit that my alarm had reached a critical stage. While trying to maintain the proper attitude for the occasion, I fear I quite simply passed out from sheer terror. Before opening my eyes, I could already tell we were in an entirely different climate. The warm sun was dancing on the water, leaving a spectacular light show on my unconscious eyelids. As I stirred, I heard exotic birds, the gentle lapping of the ocean, and I could feel the balmy breeze of a tropical island. I sat up in earnest. Only Wendy Darling was in the longboat with me. We sat on the beach of a most beautiful island. What's happening? Where are we?
I never thought I would see it again. I am too old to be here. Too old by far.
Beware.
Never Neverland, Dr. Watson. Peter brought us all the way to Never Neverland.
My eyes adjusted to the bright light. I saw a myriad of colors swaying in the breeze. The island was very much too much for the eyes to decipher. Where is Holmes?
Peter took him to the cave.
The cave.
In the time before Lost Boys, Peter lived in a cave just over there. As he brought more and more boys here, they convinced him to make a house under Hangman's Tree on the north side of the island.
Are you all right, Wendy?
I cannot help but feel all of this is my fault. I cannot help but think that had I just left it all alone, stopped believing so vehemently, I could have severed Hook's connection to our world.
No, Wendy. That is the burden that all victims bear. You mustn't blame yourself for the villainous acts that you could not prevent. Hook's actions are his own, and as such, he must be the one to bear the guilt. The best we can do is strive to make sure that happens, and restore whatever peace we may.
Poor Jane is somewhere on this island. We should begin a search.
Quite so. Let's gather the others. Wendy and I made our way through the thick overgrowth of tropical plants and trees. As we passed through the jungle, I noted a number of arrows lodged in trees. I say, what's all this then?
The island was once populated by natives.
You don't say. Whatever became of them?
Hook, I suppose.
How do you mean?
Hook's primary pastime was hunting lost boys and the natives of this island. There hasn't been any lost boys for some time now.
Your brothers were the last?
No, Peter still collected lost boys for years after we all returned home. But he stopped.
I'm very curious about these so-called lost boys. What do you know about them?
Well, to hear Peter tell it, the lost boys were boys who fell from their prams when they were babies. Peter would find them and bring them to Never Neverland.
But wouldn't their parents miss them?
Oh, yes, undoubtedly.
And why are there no lost girls?
Peter said that girls were far too clever to fall from their prams.
Remarkable.
Yes.
You're forgetting something, Wendy Bird.
I told you I don't like when you use that name.
Why? It's your name, isn't it?
I am not a bird.
Tell that to Tootles.
Not funny, Tink.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the joke here.
Oh, it's hilarious. When Wendy first came to the island, I hated her. And if you remember, I was so tiny that I could only feel one feeling at a time. Well, she comes flying in, and I convinced the Lost Boys that she's a bird that Peter wants dead.
Oh, good Lord.
I know! And so Tootles shot Wendy with an arrow.
It was most distressing.
Only the arrow hit a kiss Peter gave Wendy.
I don't follow.
Peter is not accustomed to the real world, or any real world thing. He thought a kiss was a trinket that you would give someone you were fond of. The kiss in question was a rather well-developed acorn, which I had strung around my neck like a necklace.
So the arrow hit the acorn,
Just so.
saving your life.
Prolonging it, at least.
You said Wendy forgot something, Mrs. Bell.
Oh, yes. A lost boy is a boy who is lost.
I gathered as much.
No, not lost like they don't know where they are. Lost like ones they put in the ground.
Well, what's that?
Why do they put them in the ground? Seems like a scary thing to do.
Wait. You mean when they fall from their prams?
They die.
Great Scott!
That was Peter's promise. Why, he was allowed to live with the fairy folk. He would fly part of the way with children who passed away so that they couldn't feel alone.
Part of the way to where?
Don't know. He only ever went part of the way.
So, Tootles, Nibs, Slightly, the twins, they're all dead?
At some point. But they got better. Neverland is no place for dead people.
Well, this is rubbish.
Maybe. I don't really know what rubbish is.
You can't mean to tell me that the lost boys are reanimated corpses flopping around London?
Believe what you like. It's not like it really matters. What is always what is. And what you want to believe doesn't have a lot to do with it.
I sincerely fear I've lost my mind. What is Peter Pan and Sherlock Holmes?
Right this way.
With my mind reeling, the strange young woman led us to the mouth of an ominous cave. I could hear the boy, Peter, laughing. I say, Sherlock, we should be searching for Wendy's daughter, what? Holmes emerged from the cave as solemn as a man departing his own tomb.
She's not here, John.
However, could you know that?
Because, Watson, for the first time in my life, I know exactly what Moriarty wants.
Oh, and what's that?
Professor James Moriarty, Captain James Hook as he is known elsewhere, wants to win a war.
What?
And we're gonna let him.
What?
It's the only way to actually defeat him.
That makes no sense.
Which is exactly why it'll work.
Well, this is preposterous, Holmes. I will not allow you to go through with this.
I will not. You sound like a grown-up.
I am a grown-up.
What a terrible thing to say. I know you're old. I mean, old.
Yes, I've got it. I'm old.
But you're not a grown-up.
I most certainly am.
Hardly. A grown-up is a person who is done growing. And the worst of the grown-ups are those who try to come back from being a grown-up.
What's that?
What do you think Hook is? He's just another lost boy who didn't like being all grown up.
What?
It would seem that James Moriarty started out his illustrious career scampering around this island as a lost boy.
Back then, he was the best and the bravest of the lost boys.
What happened?
All lost boys get the yearning after a while. They feel the life they lost calling out to them from beyond the horizon.
And they just go?
I guess.
You don't remember?
I only allow myself 3 memories. My name, the wonder of me, and Wendy.
Please, Peter.
What's this nonsense? You just rattled off facts about Moriarty's childhood.
I said I only allow myself 3 memories. All other memories happen without my permission.
This is really beyond the pale, Holmes.
There is a logic behind it all.
Lies.
I ask you to trust me, John. We must prepare.
Prepare for what?
Every war has secret weapons, Watson. We must gather ours together.
What?
It's the perfect plan. Tink, take Watson and dig up Hook's treasure.
Aye, Peter.
I'll go with them.
I want you to come with Sherlock and me.
I think I will be of more use digging.
Suit yourself, I guess.
It does suit me.
Tink, as she is called, led us through an endless fantastical terrain. The entire way, my companions were silent. They were sullen, and I hadn't the foggiest idea why. Once we came to a clearing near a crystal blue lagoon, Tink began digging in the sand with unnatural strength and speed. Within seconds, she was 2 feet into the ground. In her fevered digging, a tea kettle was jettisoned from the ground. It fell at Wendy's feet.
Tink,
What is it?
isn't this your house?
What?
This tea kettle, wasn't this your home?
Don't be silly. Look at me. How could I ever fit in there?
Don't pretend, Tink. Why did you bury your house?
Because it's not my house anymore.
What do you mean?
I don't live here anymore.
This is Neverland.
You don't have to tell me, Wendy. I know it's Neverland. I brought him here, you know? I found Peter crying in the bushes. He was a baby, all alone in the world. I brought him here. I fed him. I cared for him. I taught him how to fly. And you know what he did? He forgot.
Forgot what?
Me! He forgot me! But you know what he does remember? He remembers Wendy darling. He remembers she's coming for spring cleaning.
No, he doesn't. He forgot me too.
Oh, no. He always remembered you. He just forgot everything else. Why do you think I look like this?
What?
He was always on about Wendy this and Wendy that. So I thought, if he needs a Wendy so much, maybe I can be a Wendy. She's just big and clumsy. I can do that.
You turned yourself human?
Hardly. Just big and clumsy. And it worked. A little. I reminded him of you. And we had great adventures. And when I thought he was happy, I told him that I was Tinkerbell. And he had no idea what I meant.
How do you mean?
He didn't remember me as a fairy.
A fairy? What is that now? A fairy?
Yes, you big silly. I'm Tinkerbell, of the fairy folk. I am all that is left of the Neverland fairies.
All that's left? What happened to the others, Tink?
Whenever anyone says that they do not believe in fairies, a fairy drops dead on the spot. Well, imagine if fairies are forgotten altogether. So now, I can't go back to being a fairy. I wouldn't last the blink of an eye.
But that doesn't mean you can't live here. Why live on the streets in London?
It's far better to be lost where you don't know where you are than to be lost where you know every inch of the place. It hurts too much to wander around as a stranger in your own home.
The two of them stood in silence. They shared a pain that until this moment they had thought was unique to themselves individually. It is a small comfort to know that your pain is not yours alone, but it is a comfort nonetheless.
Here it is!
Tink pulled a treasure chest out of the hole she had dug. She carried it over her head without flinching. She bounded through the jungle back to Peter Pan and Holmes.
Is this it?
Yep, Captain Hook's treasure.
Holmes, I feel I have been more than patient for a man on an imaginary island. What the devil is happening here?
We have more than just Wendy's daughter to rescue. All of her brothers need rescuing as well. And if we're to go against a ship full of pirates, we'll need allies.
What do you have in mind, Holmes?
Back to London, Watson.
You're listening to Odd Time Radio's presentation of Sherlock Holmes and the Kensington Case. Odd Time Radio is recorded live above the Savannah Coffee Roasters every Thursday night in Odd Lot Improv's performance space, The Loft on Liberty. If you are tuning in on the radio or the internet, we are being broadcast on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. Savannah's Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And now, back to our program.
You want me to do what?
I admit telling Mrs. Hudson the daft plan of raising an army to fight a band of pirates was considerably easier than I thought it had to be. Her response was surprising, to say the least.
You want me to take up arms against some delusional group of men out in the harbor?
Pirates, yes.
Well, I was going to don my stockings tonight, but that hardly seems like a reason to miss out on raiding a pirate ship.
Quite right.
You in on this too, Wendy?
We must do all we can to stop Hook.
That's the fellow what has a hook for a hand.
Yes.
Seems an unsavory sort. You shouldn't associate with him, you know.
Believe me, if I could avoid him, I absolutely would.
Really? Because sometimes it seems like the kind of trouble you get into comes from leaving certain doors open.
That may very well be, but I know that I do not hold the door open for him. I hold it open for myself, and the misfortunes that he wreaks on the world lay squarely on his shoulders, not mine.
Good on you, love. Let's shove a boot in that hook-handed fiend's face.
Oh, I hadn't thought of you as a violent person, Mrs. Hudson.
Well, that's because you've never been on my bad side, John.
Glad to hear it.
So, who else do you have in mind for your little army?
The steamboat captain you told us about, Mrs. Darling, Lestrade if we can coax him, Irene Adler, and if she's up for it, Mary.
Mary? Mary who?
Mary Watson, of course. I know she's been out of sorts, but we only need the show of an army.
What's he on about, John? Does he not know?
Know what, John?
Mary, she... Well, I hadn't called on you in so long. It's just...
Mary is dead. Watson, why ever didn't you tell me?
I felt certain you would discern it without my having to tell you.
That's not a reason, John. I'm so sorry.
No, Holmes, please. I didn't want to trouble your mind with my misfortunes.
John, you are my dearest friend. There is no misfortune you could not share with me.
It's not that I didn't want to share it with you. I wanted another adventure with you. One without pity. My own pity for myself is chief among the pities I am trying to avoid.
All right, John. We finish this, and then we honor Mary properly. What say you?
Yes, Holmes. That suits me very well. In all my years, I've never found occasion to cry. I suppose it could be my staunch upbringing. But since Mary's passing, I've had long hours to examine this distance I have from my feelings. With all this talk of eternal youth, I see how I've leaned heavily on the idea that showing emotion is a childish act. Now, of course, I see the true childish act is pretending that they do not affect me at all. It would seem I am, indeed, still growing. I pondered the lessons of Peter Pan all the way to the American steamboat captain's ship.
Are you kidding me?
I assure you, Captain, we have every reason to believe that the pirate ship you encountered is plotting a series of attacks that would terrorize all of Europe.
So, what, are you deputizing me?
I don't actually have an authority to do so, but if we do not act now, we will lose the advantage.
So, what do you need me to do?
Tink here will explain everything.
Tink, huh?
That's me.
You look like a little young to be mixed up in all of this.
You think? I'm about as old as all humanity.
You wear it well.
Thanks. Is that your boat?
I'm the captain, so more or less.
You want to wreck it?
That's not my first inclination.
It'll be fun.
Hey, Sherlock, what's with her?
Best to trust her, Captain, because whether or not you go along with her, she'll do what she does.
Yeah, sounds like every woman I ever met.
Are you ready, Tink?
Ready for what?
Exactly. We'll see you tonight.
Unless you're dead.
Well, here's hoping it doesn't come to that. See you when you hear the rooster crow, Captain.
Sure, whatever that means.
We left Tink with the steamboat captain and headed straight for Lestrade at Scotland Yard. We thought it best to send Wendy to her home.
You two have a lot of explaining to do.
Yes, I suppose so.
Where's Wendy and me? Where's the homeless girl? Where's the letter? What have you two been up to? And keep in mind, your answers will determine whether or not I lock you up for a few years or for the rest of your life.
Do you recall the first day we met? You asked me to deduce your character.
Yeah, that's right. What of it?
You had the faint scent of a sterilizing agent about you, suggesting you had spent a considerable amount of time in a hospital. The smell had entrenched itself into your clothing. Despite your meticulous nature, you could not remove that scent. I am certain you had been visiting Lestrade Sr. in the hospital, but not recently. No, it had in fact been weeks since you saw him. Your shoes are 2 sizes too large for your feet, and your tie is a decade out of fashion. You are wearing the costume of your father in hopes of being more like him, but given that you have stopped visiting him, and that no report of his passing had been released, it is reasonable to deduce that you stopped visiting your father because he upset you in some way. That way is most likely in the form of exhibiting disappointment in you, not only as a detective, but as a man. Hence the curious letter in your breast pocket, a letter you have carried long enough for it to have caused a visible crease. It's there now, your letter of resignation, I would surmise, written years ago, as evidenced by the yellowing of the paper. I caught a glance of it when you pointed to the Darling house. I believe the career in law enforcement was not your choice, and if given the freedom to choose, you would be a map maker.
Oh, good Lord, Holmes. How the devil did you come up with map maker?
I don't understand. I never told anybody that wanted to be a cartographer.
Your vest pocket, the one in which most gentlemen carry a pocket watch. You carry a compass. The size and shape of that particular compass is expressly used by cartographers. The little finger on your right hand has calluses that suggest you have taken to long hours of drafting. Such calluses appear only on the hands of those who draw for long periods of time.
But you said...
That your father was a genius, yes. I lied. Your father was far from a great detective. I used your admiration for him to insinuate Watson and myself into the investigation. But now we truly need your help. And your father would not approve of you helping us, but I promise you it is essential to saving the Henley girl's life.
I watched as Lestrade Jr. measured the situation. I could see him drawing up a map in his mind. The strange new topography had him reeling. He closed his eyes and seemed almost in a trance. He opened his eyes and smiled.
I'll join you, Holmes. But I have to deliver this letter first.
Good man.
Thank you, sir.
As Lestrade left, I could almost swear I saw a skip in his step. Holmes lingered a moment as he worked up the nerve to approach Irene Adler, a woman so recently returned from the dead.
I would love nothing more than to take from Moriarty some small bit of what he stole from me, but I cannot imagine that I would be of any real use.
Moriarty thinks that you have played out your part in this drama. He has written you out of the story. It's time to show him that he is not the author of your life.
Isn't he, though? Even here, as we speak of intercepting him, even now, my best hope is a worthwhile reaction to what he has set in motion. Would I not be better served avoiding him altogether? Not being caught in the elaborate, tangled web he has woven specifically for me? If I go along with you, won't I still be in the prison he built for me?
It is easy to label the condition of our lives as a prison, either by circumstance or premeditation, but we are always free to choose our actions. It is that freedom which defies the architects of the would-be prisons.
I must decline. I know too well what can be lost. I already feel the emptiness deepening within me. The well of lost memories is filling, and I fear I may drown. I simply cannot bear the thought of losing any more.
Of course. I understand fully. I wish you the very best, Irene.
Thank you, Sherlock. I hope the very best for you as well.
I suppose it would be too much to hope for everything to go exactly as planned. We reconvened with Wendy at her home. Mrs. Darling was in the nursery with Wendy. They held each other as if the act kept them from physically falling apart. As we entered the nursery, the window blew open and Peter Pan appeared on the windowsill.
Peter!
Wendy, it's time for spring cleaning.
No, Peter, we have a plan, remember?
Plans are for grown-ups.
I am a grown-up, Peter.
No, that's not true.
Peter,
Who are you?
I'm Wendy's mother.
Wendy has a mother?
Of course she does. Everyone does.
Not me. That's why I found Wendy, so she could be our mother and tell us bedtime stories.
Peter, why are there no lost boys in Neverland?
They left.
But you always find more. You find them and bring them to Neverland.
Not anymore.
Why?
Why do you want to know?
Because I don't want you to be alone.
I'm not alone. I always have you for spring cleaning.
I haven't been to spring cleaning in ever so long, Peter. Surely you know that.
Every spring.
No.
What's wrong, Wendy?
I am old, Peter. Ever so much more than 20. I have a daughter. I am married. Was married. I grew up, Peter, and you act like I'm still Wendy Darling.
You are still Wendy Darling.
Not the Wendy Darling you knew.
Yes. You will always be that Wendy Darling. And whether you age or marry or have a family, you will always be Wendy Darling, plus that other stuff.
Oh, Peter, I wish you understood.
Understood what?
The way the world works.
Why would I ever want to understand that?
Oh, Peter.
Children don't know what it means when I find them. They're scared, and I play games with them. They fly, and they don't know why. They don't understand that I'm there to help them.
Help them how?
Help them not be afraid
Of death?
of where they are going. One moment they are stuck in this world where they can't fly. The next, they are soaring through the stars.
But some of them you like.
Oh, yes. Some of them I have such fun with. They play games. They make me laugh.
And you take them to Neverland.
It's against the rules. But what fun is it if you don't break the rules?
There are rules?
Well, just one.
What rule is that?
Can't you guess?
No.
You're supposed to fly somewhere. You have to get there, no matter what. What do you think the one rule is?
I don't know.
Never land.
That's it! The one rule!
It's not a name, it's an instruction.
But sometimes you gotta land.
But Hook said that there were many Neverlands.
Oh, sure. Everyone has a Neverland. Their own special Neverland.
Why would we each get some magic place where we must never go?
You're so silly. Of course you're supposed to go there. You're just not supposed to stay there. You're free to go to your own personal Neverland for as long as you can stay a child. But as you grow, it becomes harder to get there, harder to remember, and soon you never think of it at all.
Another never.
Oh, yes. That's why it's never, never land. You should never, never land.
Why take the boys to Neverland?
For fun. So they wouldn't be sad or afraid.
Why come for me?
Because lost boys miss their mommies.
But why me?
Because you're Wendy. It's always been Peter Pan and Wendy. Everyone knows that.
Everyone?
Of course.
Did you say it's always been Peter Pan and Wendy?
That's right.
How can it have always been?
Everything that ever was has always been. Everything that will ever be has always been.
Moriarty said that there were Neverlands in the future. How is that possible?
Time doesn't work in Neverland. Every person has their own Neverland. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, all Neverlands are there always.
So it's true. He could go into the distant future and plunder.
To what end?
To any end he deems fit.
Then we must stop him.
It's time.
Our hodgepodge regiment of pirate hunters met on the docks within sight of the Jolly Roger. All were present save the steamboat captain. Mrs. Hudson was carrying a cutlass.
Mrs. Hudson, I'm pleased to see you're prepared for this, but I believe all we really need is inside the chest Tink is carrying.
I didn't come all this way to not fight with pirates. I suggest you all take up a sword.
I have a revolver.
But as do I.
I am prepared.
Holmes positioned himself at the end of the gangplank. He stood with a sense of purpose I had not seen in some time.
Moriarty?
Sherlock, is that you? I'd thought you were gone for good.
I would like to negotiate for Jane Henley.
I'm sorry, Holmes. You truly have nothing I want.
No? Tink!
Tink heaved the heavy chest onto the ground before Holmes.
Is that... Oh, goodness, Holmes. Do you really think I bury things that I want to keep? No. I definitely do not want the contents of that chest.
No? What say we open it then?
That's hardly necessary.
Oh. Did you really think I was offering to exchange this chest for Jane? No, Moriarty. I am willing to exchange your privacy for Jane.
What an immoral proposal. Bravo, Holmes, but I assure you the contents of that chest would do more damage to you than to me.
I'm calling your bluff, Moriarty.
They call me Hook, what see me aboard the Jolly Roger. You do well to remember that, Sherlock.
All right, Hook.
Holmes picked the lock of the trunk. Moriarty sneered from the deck of the ship.
Sherlock, wait. Before you open that chest, this isn't necessary. You don't have to go through with it.
What could possibly be in this trunk, Hook? What could make you so uncomfortable?
I'm only thinking of you, Sherlock.
I've never known you to show concern.
That's not true, Sherlock. You knew it once. You've only forgotten.
I don't forget, Hook. Surely you know that much about me.
Holmes opened the trunk with grave authority. I was expecting to see a pile of gold and jewels, but instead it was filled with books, papers, and toys. Holmes stared at the contents.
What is this?
Not what you expected, Sherlock. What a surprise.
What is this? Tobacco analysis? World history? Philosophy? Astronomy?
Yes, a century's worth of education in one trunk.
What?
What do you want about Moriarty?
Sherlock is learning the truth. Did he ever tell you that I was his tutor?
Well, he had mentioned it before. Algebra, I believe.
It was ever so much more than that, Doctor. Have you ever wondered how Sherlock Holmes could possibly know as much as he does? How is it possible that he can tell the difference between types of tobacco from a dozen places around the world?
Well, he has an exceptional mind and an incredible discipline.
No, it was me. I taught him all of that, Watson. Everything Holmes is because of me.
But how's that?
I was the first lost boy.
Yes, I've heard as much. You left Neverland to become an adult.
Quite. But did you hear how I was welcomed back to Neverland? After a lifetime of toiling in the ridiculously dull and uninspired world, I discovered a way back to Neverland. I was overjoyed at the prospect of reuniting with my best friend, Peter. How I longed to return to the simple life of a lost boy on that island, and when I saw Peter on the beach, I reached my hand out to clasp his, and he lopped it off with his sword and fed it to that cursed crocodile.
You should never have come back.
I had lived through a dreary life without a shred of magic. I returned to my rightful place at your side only to be rejected.
You left, Hook. You can't come back and expect to just be a boy again.
How could you betray me like that?
Betray you? You came back, fed up with this life you made, the choices you made, and tried to steal back something that does not belong to you. Your ship ran ashore, old man, as you came back to steal a new one. A new childhood.
I didn't want a new childhood. I wanted mine back.
That's not how it works, Hook. When a boy as glorious as I am fights and flies and crows, it's the way it's meant to be. But when a fool like you does it, you're nothing more than a pirate trying to plunder the riches of youth. And Peter Pan will always be at the door to shut you out.
Then, what is in this treasure chest?
I'm glad you asked, Holmes. You see, when I returned to Neverland, Peter had replaced me with two of the most obnoxious, loud, and crude little boys I had ever laid eyes on. Oh, how the great Peter Pan doted on his new best friends. He loved them as dearly as I have ever seen him love anything. Well, with the exception of Wendy, darling.
What does this have to do with me?
Oh, come now, Holmes. Are you telling me you cannot see the pattern here? I realized that the only way to hurt Pan, the way he hurt me, was to make him burn with the knowledge of betrayal. And what stands to be the greatest betrayal of all? Why, growing up, of course. So I snuck into the camp at night and stole away those two precious lost boys, and I forced them to learn everything there ever was to learn.
What for?
Are you not paying attention? Knowledge is growth. The more you know, the more grown up you are. I forced those two lost boys to learn more than any human had ever known, and once their minds were over-brimming with facts and theories, mathematics and science, I unleashed them upon Peter Pan.
And what did Peter do?
He forgave them for their knowledge, and carried them off to London, dropping them at the door of a prominent family, the Holmes family.
What are you saying?
You and your brother Mycroft were lost boys. I taught you all that you know in an attempt to break Peter Pan's heart.
How long did you teach us?
Over 100 years, I would think. Time is hard to measure in Neverland.
So, I have a claim to Neverland.
Yes, you do. And you could easily take hold of it.
How?
Why, join my crew. We will take it all back. Not just Peter's Neverland, but all the Neverlands across time and space.
Don't listen to him, Sherlock.
No, Sherlock, listen to me, and me alone. You can have whatever you want. Join my crew. Sail beneath the Jolly Roger and become a gentleman of fortune.
All my life I've been alien to this world. A solitary island in this ocean of humanity. All this time lost. I want back what I had lost.
No, Sherlock. I cannot allow it.
You cannot allow it. You can't allow it. You meddled with my destiny. You took me from the course that was set for me. And because of it, I suffered a long, lonely life obsessed with punishing those who reminded me of Moriarty, of Hook. And now, I want what I have lost. I will take it if necessary.
Ha! Look, Pan, look at your favorite Sherlock. He wants his childhood back. He's a pirate like me.
My mind has been on fire the entirety of my life. I just want a moment's peace.
Do not go down this road, Sherlock. There is no return.
I've been set down this road long ago, Peter, and now we must end the journey.
So be it.
At that moment, Peter dove at Holmes with lightning speed. It happened so quickly I barely had a chance to shout out a warning before Peter had run Sherlock through with his sword. Sherlock collapsed.
No! What have you done?
Like you said, Hook, he was a pirate.
No! It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Not like this. Bad form! Bad form! Sherlock was meant to be at my side. He was meant to be my first mate.
What are you on about, Hook? You never cared for anything or anyone but yourself.
How cruel of you, Wendy. I would have expected you, of all people here, to sympathize with me.
Sympathize?
Yes. I spent a century pouring my knowledge into Sherlock, but Sherlock was special. His mind was so apt.
You were the primary tormentor of his life, Moriarty.
I couldn't leave him. After so long, it pained me not to be able to see him every day. He needed me, and I needed him. He gave me purpose beyond revenge against Pan. My career as pirate has brought me no treasure, no fame, nothing but an emptiness that not even killing Peter Pan could fill. I feared aging and death. I feared time itself, and here I was, on the very precipice of defeating that jagged-toothed crocodile once and for all. But what hope of adventure is there without Holmes to thwart me?
I'll thwart you.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Peter, but I fear it will not suffice.
Then you have no reason to keep her, Hook.
What do you mean?
Where is Jane?
Jane? Oh, yes, Jane. She's safe. I left her in a Neverland that will take excellent care of her.
Where?
How should I know? Smee?
Yes, sir?
Where did we leave the girl?
The little girl?
The only girl.
Oh, right. We left her next to the tree.
Which tree? Where?
It was a big tree somewhere.
All of this, and we are no closer to finding Jane.
Yes, well, I had imagined we would have been long gone by now, but seeing as we are here, two armies, what? I suppose we could go on and kill one another. What say you?
I cannot believe you don't know where you left Jane.
Holmes!
Sherlock!
Yes, we knew you'd crack, so we devised a deception that would prompt you to give up the whereabouts of Jane. I had you figured out, Moriarty. Pan told me the entire story when we were in Neverland.
You could have let me in on the plan.
Sorry, Watson. I felt the less people to know the plan, the greater the chance of success. You see, I had to wonder why it was that Moriarty had such a marked interest in me, following me all the days of my life, and it struck me that it must have been more than just ire that fueled him.
Wait, are you saying that's Professor Moriarty?
You may call me Captain Hook.
I'm going to call you under arrest. That's what I'm going to call you.
Are we going to fight? Or are we just going to stand around yapping?
Good form, Mrs. Hudson. Yes, it would seem that we have all forgotten our place.
I have not forgotten, Hook. You murdered my husband. You stole my child. You will not leave this place alive.
Now, that is the spirit, Wendy, but surely you know that there are casualties in war. It's nothing personal, just war.
No! No more wars.
Oh, Peter Pan speaking out against war. Seems a little out of your line.
No. Hook. We played at war all these years. And while you may have piled bodies on the deck of the Jolly Roger, I never knew what it really meant. Wendy?
Yes, Peter.
You asked why there were no more Lost Boys?
Yes.
The skies were crowded. Smoke and booming sounds. And so many Lost Boys. So many. And no matter what games I tried to play, they were scared. And no matter how I tried, I couldn't help but worry.
Worry?
Yes, exactly. Peter Pan doesn't worry.
No self-respecting adventurer does.
Here.
Where?
Here.
When?
Now?
Oh, that makes sense.
Don't it, though?
Peter,
Wendy?
what about the Lost Boys?
War makes you grow up, Wendy. That is why there are no more Lost Boys. War destroys childhood. I want nothing to do with war.
Well, we won't call it a war. We'll call it backgammon or what have you. We should kill one another regardless. It's getting terribly late.
Oh, can I kill Smee?
What?
He seems like an easy one to kill.
No, you cannot kill Smee.
But I called it. If you call it, then you can do it. I called killing Smee.
That's not a rule I'm familiar with.
Oh, come on, Smee. Where's your fighting spirit? All right, men, fall in.
The pirates tripped over themselves in an attempt to organize an attack. Wendy stepped forward.
Boys, I need you to remember who you are.
I'm Salty Sam.
No, you are not. You are Tootles, Philip Darling. You are a good man, wise and just. And Nibs, Charles, you're a nobleman. Please, Michael, John.
It won't work, Wendy. No lost boy would ever settle for the pointless, brief, and unbearable life that this world offers when there's a chance of going to Neverland.
You're wrong, Hook. Plenty of lost boys have the chance to come back and never do. Sherlock's had the chance all his life, and he never even considered it.
What's that?
You are still the same lost boy you always were, Sherlock. You can come back to Neverland whenever you like, but only because you never would.
I fear I am beginning to understand you, Peter.
Wendy?
Yes, Tootles.
What's happening? Where am I?
John.
I have a splitting headache. What?
What's all this now?
I knew it. I knew that my brothers would never resort to piracy.
You knew it, eh? So Hook is left all alone again.
You still have me. You still have Smee, sir.
So Hook is left all alone again.
Captain James Hook, I relieve you of your command.
How's that?
I am taking your ship, and I am finding my daughter.
Don't be ridiculous. Who ever heard of a Captain Wendy?
I'd sail under her command.
Me too.
I'm an out-of-work mapmaker. Could be useful on a ship.
Well, what a merry band of privateers, but not a one of you knows how to sail this ship.
I do.
Mutiny, Mr. Smee.
My name's Jason.
Well, you'll never get anywhere without a proper sailor aboard.
I didn't hear any rooster crowing or whatever, but it seemed like the conversation turned towards sailors, proper and otherwise.
Excellent timing. Did Tink explain what has to happen?
No, she's not exactly all there.
Of course I'm not all there. I'm here, aren't I?
What is this?
It's the final act, Moriarty, because I finally understand what you are all about. I had thought it was fortune, power, the usual motivations of the depraved criminal mind.
Are you attempting to Sherlock Holmes me, Sherlock Holmes?
You're not after any riches, and despite your constant declarations, you are not as obsessed with revenge.
Must you drain the very joy out of everything, Sherlock? Well, enlighten us. What is it that makes Captain Hook tick?
You are driven by fear.
Fear? Me?
Yes, fear. You fear obscurity. It's not aging that you fear, not dying, but being forgotten. Like all of the things of Neverland. You fear fading from memory, fading from existence. That's the reason you want to travel through time and leave your mark on the whole of history. You fear the darkness that comes from never having existed.
And how does that deduction help you, Holmes?
Two things are left to us, Hook. One, Jane is somewhere out there in the uncharted Neverland spanning into forever, and we must not rest until she is found.
And the second thing?
Two, so long as we must turn over every rock in the endless Neverscape, we can sponge out the name Moriarty and any sign that Captain Hook had ever existed. We will simply erase you from everything, save a bedtime story in which you are primarily a clown chasing his youth and running from the clock. We will relegate you to a passing joke told by children.
You wouldn't. What would the world be without Captain Hook?
Well, let's find out, shall we?
What do you need me to do?
Take the helm.
Aye, aye.
Sherlock, you can't do this.
Captain Wendy, your orders.
Set a course.
Aye, aye.
Third star to the right and straight on till dawn.
This isn't amusing, Holmes.
Watson, I believe this is where I take my leave of you.
How is that?
I can't ask you to join us. You would have to sacrifice your life here.
What life, Holmes? I had more purpose in the last week than I've had in the last 5 years.
Are you saying you wish to join this misfit band of buccaneers?
Join? I feel full well that I'm a founding member.
I will not be ignored. I am Captain James Hook.
James Hook, you are no longer welcome aboard this ship. Disembark at once.
You can't be serious. The Jolly Roger cannot sail without Hook.
It can and will.
Surely you want your vengeance, Wendy. You can't allow me to roam free. Put me in the brig. Force me into service.
No, Hook. You will never set foot on this ship again. You will be left behind and left alone. And once off this ship, you will feel every crushing second of the rest of your life weighing you down until you are reduced to dust. I sentence you to mortality, to a life void of magic, to living in the ordinary world.
I'll only return to my criminal empire, Holmes. I have endless resources. Professor Moriarty will rule with an iron fist.
Do you think so, James? All those Neverlands hanging in distant constellations represent the whole of history. If, in the uncertain future, we are successful in those far-off dream worlds, then it has already happened. What we do tomorrow, the next, and so on, have already happened in those curious corners of the universe.
What are you trying to say?
We've already defeated you, just by making the choice to defeat you. You'll find Moriarty is nothing more than a boogeyman whispered about in quiet hours of the night.
How can you do this to me?
You act as though you deserve better.
I could hardly make that claim.
Captain Hook straightened his back and cocked his hat to the side. He nodded and then walked down the gangplank. There was a lurching sensation as the ship pulled away from the water. It rose into the sky. I eyed the shape of Hook on the dock. As we lifted into the sky, he shrank away until I could not make out his shape.
Peter, where are you going?
To Never Neverland, silly.
You could stay with us, Peter. You don't have to go.
You know that's not true, Wendy. I'll see you at spring cleaning.
Will you?
Always.
And with a twinkle in his eye, Pan was gone. The wide expanse of stars spread out before us like a mountain range of diamonds. Wendy pointed to a nearby Neverland, and our adventure began. Time and space had little meaning to our ship and crew. We were the architects of our destiny. In time, we would learn the secrets that time, space, and all dimensions held. Our adventures took us to far-off planets and the beginning of time. And we became like fire and ice and rage, like the night and the storm in the heart of the sun. We became the ancients and forever. We went on to burn at the center of time, and we could see the turn of the universe. We even established our own planet, a grand Neverland beyond the gates of time. I've chronicled our stories in a vast collection that I simply call The Doctor and His Companions. And that is the only way to properly end this story, by saying it never ends. Just like you and your dreams, this story is eternal.
Thank you for listening to Odd Time Radio Hour's presentation of Sherlock Holmes in the Kensington Case. Tonight's performers have been Chris Soucy as John Watson, Mark Rand as Sherlock Holmes, Laura Cleland as Wendy Darling, David Harland Rousseau as Lestrade and Nibs, Travis Spangenburg as Michael Darling, Mike Moore as Tootles, Harmony Kelly as Tinkerbell, Marjorie Ward as Mrs. Hudson, Bill Cooper as a Steamboat Captain, Courtney Grile as Irene Adler, Trick Kelly as Mr. Smee, Patrick Saxon as James Moriarty and Hook, and Jin Hee Soucy Rand as Peter Pan.